Hey gang, it's Squill, and I am running out of ways to start these reviews. The Wolves Who Wandered is the 7th episode of Fionna and Cake's 2nd season. I think the wolves refer to Fionna and Fennel getting high and wandering around at the start of the episode, although it could maybe refer to Huntress and Hunter, who also wander around, I guess. I associate wolves more with Huntress Wizard than Fionna, so I'm not really sure on this one. This episode opens with Ellis, who is dreaming of aliens, which is implied to be a regular thing for him. I like the implication that Ellis dreams about having sex with these aliens. Reminds me of Tree Trunks' alien husbands. The alien whispers something to Ellis, but we nor Ellis get to hear it. Getting into the episode proper, I really like this flyer for the fundraiser referencing this iconic panel from the Fionna and Cake comic. Fionna is plastering DJ Flame's face all over the flyers, and even taking time away from Marshall to give to him. A pretty dick move that Fionna is blissfully ignorant to. Later on, Fionna and Cake are waiting for Felix at the mausoleum. I like this little moment between the two, Cake calming Fionna down as she gets stressed out. It feels very reminiscent of Finn and Jake's dynamic. It's just nice to see the two acting sisterly towards each other, especially since they're split up a lot this season. But the more Fionna festers on this, the more her jealousy towards Fennel and fear of failure rises. So Fionna attempts to confront Felix, who, according to Fennel, has just completely vanished. So the two go to Huntress Wizard, who, completely uninterested in fighting Felix, gives the pair wizard eyes to help track him down. This portion of the episode is very fun, with Fionna and Fennel wandering around the city high. It's a very over-the-top depiction of what it's like being on drugs, but it's very funny. It's also cool getting to see the spirits from beyond this earthly realm again. Also a cool avenue to see the magical forms of characters like Ellis and Mkron again. Speaking of Mkron, we get our first actual scene between him and Cake since the Lion of Embers, and once again, it's very brief. I've said it before, but it's very frustrating how little Cake and Mkron's relationship gets to develop across the season. I remember when I first watched this episode, I was so confused when Cake kisses him here. Like, how are they already at that stage in their relationship? Cool seeing the Fionna World version of the Tree Witch though. Same with the water nymphs later in the episode. Anyway, after some shenanigans, Cake locks Fionna and Fennel in a porta-potty. Their conversation here is easily my favorite scene in the episode. I really relate to the feelings that Fionna is expressing here, being self-conscious of having things less figured out than the other people in her life. There's something very stressful about feeling as though you're trailing behind all your friends. And I like Fennel's insight into Hunter, that they've had to work on themselves too. That the people in our lives don't have things as figured out as we may think. After the two break out, they stumble upon a Venus transporter, clearly modeled after the Martian transporter, except designed for 2 people as opposed to just 1. Meanwhile, Cake enlists the help of Huntress Wizard to find Fionna and Fennel, who ends up ditching her to look for Felix. Huntress isn't on her own for long, however, as she ends up asking Hunter for help. I like the idea behind this subplot of Huntress needing help from what she considers to be a weaker version of herself. But in execution, this character pairing barely amounts to anything, only getting about 2 minutes of screen time. It's just not really fleshed out enough to add much to Huntress's arc. And speaking of arcs that aren't fleshed out enough, we then cut to Marshall, who catches on to Damon spying on him. This moment feels kinda contrived to me. Like, this dude has been spying on Marshall for his entire life, and he only just now realized. But regardless, it's here where Marshall finds out about Hannah keeping Simone away from him, which he's naturally very upset about. Back with Fionna and Fennel, the two arrive at Venus, the Fionna world equivalent to Mars. It's a fun idea, but unfortunately, this is where the episode kinda loses me. I don't know, the Venus stuff isn't bad by any means, but maybe it just feels like a bit too much of a detour in a season that already has so much going on. I get that it's supposed to develop Fiona's relationship with Fennel, however, even that is a bit lacking in my opinion. I'll get more into that later. We do get our second song of the season here though, and it's pretty good, but probably the least memorable of this season's songs, in my opinion. After the song, it's revealed that Felix has been kidnapped by the Queen of Mars, so Fionna and Fennel call for a duel to win him back. There's an interesting line Fionna has when she and Fennel are getting ready about how she's not as good of a fighter as Finn. I like that after meeting Finn last episode, Fionna is now comparing herself to him. It's another example of Fiona's hero complex weighing her down, as it's completely unfair of her to compare herself to Finn. Anyway, Fionna and Fennel enter the duel where they find out that they are powered by genuine affection. Here, Fennel reveals that she's admired Fionna and striven to be like her for a very long time, which is an interesting bit of character insight, but I wish the show delved a bit more into this. Like, I think it would make perfect sense if Fennel felt this way after the events of Season 1, but the way she words it here makes it seem like she's felt this way about Fionna for quite a bit longer than that, and I'm not sure why. And even then, it's not as though she knew Fionna all that well before this episode. I'm not saying the way Fennel feels about Fionna is necessarily a plot hole, rather that I wish it was something that was delved into a bit more, because as is, it leaves me scratching my head a little bit. I do think there is something to be said, however, about the way Fennel's character parallels Fern's, that had it not been for the grass curse, Finn and Fern could have been friends, which highlights just how unfair Fern's inherent existence is. And nowhere is this better shown off than this moment after the two win the duel. I didn't originally think this was a shipping moment, but after the end of the season, I'm not quite sure. But either way, I think this moment is primarily supposed to represent self-love between Fionna and Fennel. Also cool to see Fennel's magic design. Back with Huntress and Hunter, the two discovered that Felix has been playing for the Lemon Carbs all this time. This reveal is kinda dumb, in my opinion. The idea that he's just been playing for the Lemon Carbs for a full day and just didn't tell anyone is very contrived to me, and it makes this whole search for him feel extremely pointless. I do like the moment of Huntress projecting her poor communication issues onto Felix, and then rightfully being called out by Cake. After this, Huntress finds Fionna and Fennel and wakes them up with this orange goop. It's made pretty vague as to whether or not any of their Venus adventure actually happened, but given that Ellis has been visited by the Venusian aliens in his dreams, I think it's real at least to some degree. After Fennel leaves, Huntress tells Fionna she'll help her save the sweet spot because she is the broken tool she needs. And this comes way too late in the season for me, at the end of episode 7. For most of the season, Huntress's storyline has had nothing to do with Fionna's. Only now, as we're reaching the end of the season, do their plotlines get connected in a meaningful way. Compare that to Simon in Season 1, who's essentially on the same page as Fionna and Cake by the end of episode 4. And even then, Huntress doesn't actually do anything to help Fionna save the sweet spot. And in fact, Huntress is separated from Fionna for most of episode 9 and the entirety of 10, meaning there's only one episode after this in which Fionna and Huntress share the same plotline. I've said it before, but it just feels like Huntress doesn't belong in this season at all. Her storyline never connects to Fionna's in a meaningful way, aside from like one or two vague thematic similarities that the show barely does anything with. That being said, however, I do really like this final beat of the episode, with Fionna on the phone with Marshall. Ties back to the start of the episode in a very nice way, being another example of Fionna ignoring Marshall's actual feelings while trying to help him and Gary. I really like that last shot of the spirit slowly disappearing around her, it's really cool. And that was The Wolves Who Wandered, an episode that isn't bad overall, but I have pretty mixed thoughts on it. There's definitely some fun stuff in this episode, but it begins to drag for me by the time we get to Venus, and it doesn't explore Fennel as much as I wish it did. And some of the ways it fits into the season as a whole are a little clunky to me. I totally get why others really like this one, but for me, it's like a 6 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments, and join me next time as we reach the season's endgame with the insect that's sane. Squill out.